Hello, friends and family around the world. This is Will Barney from Enoch Global Services here with another global update here on May 7th, Thursday, 2026. We're happy to share some information that's been going on the last few days. There's a lot happening in the world today, and as you can see from the title of this episode, it's called The Jackels Challenge the Lion. We'll get into the meat of what that's about a little bit later in the program. But wanted to cover some of the current events that are transpiring so that you can stay up to speed with progress that we're making towards the great financial reset that's going to change a lot of things for us. Of course, the reset's beyond financial. It's going to include education. It's going to include political and a lot of other changes that are all designed to help restore freedom and liberty back to the people. So we're going to get into our slideshow today and cover some of these items. We don't want the show to be excessively long. We're just going to try to cruise through this stuff. But there's some important points that we wanted to make today, and particularly with the title of this, the Jackels, in this regard. You can consider that the Cabal, the financial families who have been running the world for decades, and the lion as Donald Trump. And it's interesting as we see this unfold, the changes that are being made and the challenges that are being made on both sides of the conflict. So, and getting started with this, we want to start here with our first slide. Let me get my glasses out so we can see this correctly. There we go. NEC Director Kevin Hassett. There's a race unlike anything we've ever seen to create jobs in America right now. 54,000 jobs have been created for construction workers for building factories. Let's take a listen to what Kevin had to say.
Anybody who works at a factory is going to see a huge increase in the demand for their labor as the factories get set up. And it's happening in Trump time. You know, one of the most brilliant things that President Trump did, and he was 100% the guy, I was in the Oval when he said this, is that let's not have expensing for new factory buildings go on forever. Let's have it last for only 4 years. And so right now, if you want to get your full tax benefit, if you're building a new factory to create jobs in anybody's small town, then that factory has to be up and running in 4 years. Otherwise, they don't get the big deduction. And so there's a race, unlike anything we've ever seen, to create jobs in America right now. And since President Trump signed that pledge, 54,000 jobs have been created for construction workers for building factories. 54,000. They're out there working as hard as they can, and then once they get the building up, the bricks and everything, the bricks and mortar, then they have to put in electric, they got to put in plumbing, and so on. And so I think the trades are definitely going to be in very, very high demand. But the very, very skilled higher-end workers that are like the engineers who are designing the things, they'll be in demand as well. But so this is not like a K-shaped recovery. This is something that's going to affect everybody.
Kevin makes some interesting points here, excuse me, and I want to just emphasize a couple of those. One is he talked about the trades jobs, the skills. What's interesting about this is we get through these factory rebuilding, what you're going to see is you're going to see launch of humanitarian projects following this. The need for construction workers is not going to go down. It's actually going to go up. If we take a look at some of the information coming from Mike Rowe, a dirty jobs guy who's been really sounding the bullhorn about this for some time. It's that America is lacking skilled labor right now to do a lot of these jobs. We're currently sitting at somewhere around 150,000 short on electricians, 120,000 short on plumbers, and I think the HVAC is somewhere between 90 and 100,000. Very significant numbers when you look at all these projects that need to be done. And I think we're going to see a ramp up of tech schools and trying to get more skilled labor on board with this. It's interesting. Mike Rowe said he believes that the trades, the skilled trades people are going to be probably the next wave of millionaires in America because they have the skills that are needed to actually carry these projects out. So very fascinating. Just wanted to touch on that briefly. President Donald Trump said this about Iran. We're doing well. We have got to get what we have to get. And if we don't get that, we'll have to go a big step further. We've had good talks over the last 24 hours. It's very possible we will make a deal. I'm hearing from some sources that it is not only are things pretty close to a deal, I think things are pretty close to a regime change within Iran. And so this is going to be interesting as we watch this play out. Let's listen to what Trump said here in this brief video.
You're facing an opponent right now in Iran that has refused to submit. You seem optimistic now as you may be closer to a deal. What's different about this moment now than in other moments where a deal has seemed close?
Well, why do you say they refused to submit? You don't know that. You don't know what's going on behind you.
U.S. ships a few days ago.
Yeah, no, a few days ago is a long time ago. You know, in the world of war, a few days ago. No, they want to make a deal badly, and we'll see if we get there. If we get there, they can't have nuclear weapons. You know, it's very simple. But what's not to submit? So they had a Navy with 159 ships, and now every ship is blown to pieces and lying at the bottom of the water. They had an Air Force, lots of planes, and they don't have any planes. They don't have any anti-aircraft. They don't have any radar left. Their missiles are mostly decimated. They have some. They have probably 18, 19%, but not a lot by comparison to what they had. And their leaders are all dead. So I think we won. Now it's only a question of, look, if we left right now Iran, it would take them 20 years to rebuild. You would call that, we're in good shape, right?
Fantastic.
We're in good shape. And now we're doing well. Now we have to get what we have to get. If we don't do that, we'll have to go a big step further. But with that being said, they want to make a deal. We've had very good talks over the last 24 hours. And it's very possible that we'll make a deal.
So,
Yeah,
Mr.
please.
President, thank you, Mr. President. Good to see you. What are the status of these talks? They're very good. Can you just give some insight as to where
Well, we've had talks, and we've had some good talks before, as you know.
Right.
And all of a sudden, the next day, they're like, they forgot what happened. You know, they're proud, like these guys are proud. Nobody more proud than these guys. Sometimes they fight on pride because, you know, they're injured, they're hurt. No matter how great you are, you get hit by somebody else that looks like them. It's very tough, but they have great pride. These people have great pride. The others do too.
Very interesting what's been going on with this Iranian negotiation. We are hearing from some of the back channels that the supreme leader may be in a burial box already, that he may not have survived some of the stuff. So it's looking like the IRGC is very weak at this point, and the people are looking for possibly an uprising. We're going to have to watch this very closely, as I think regime change could be hours or just a few days away in Iran, and maybe that's where we finally reach a peace deal, is when the people themselves assert the power to take over this. For 47 years, they've been subjugated by this particular regime, and the people want freedom. We're going to see some things unfold there. You know, one of the fastest growing religions and areas in the world for Christianity has been in Iran for the last 5 years. They're moving in a direction that is not in the direction of the Islamic regime. And so it's very fascinating as we watch these events unfold, and we'll see if the people actually step up to take their country in light of these events. Now, there was today an issue where Iran sent out some of their smaller, faster boats, they call them mosquito boats, and fired against 3 of the battleships that the U.S. had in the Strait. Of course, none of those landed. The U.S. was able to shoot down everything that was coming at it, and they did destroy those boats and destroyed the locations of which things were lobbied. So there was a bit of tit for tat today. I don't know that that's a break from the ceasefire necessarily, but this again is a bit of the testing that's going on. As we, like I said, the Jackels are challenging and testing the lion. How far can they push things? We will see how this goes. I don't think Donald Trump is a man to be pushed, and we're going to see how this plays out. In other news, justice is beginning in America for some of the injustices that have been going on for a very long time. And I want to highlight some of these going on right now because this is a major change from past experience, as we see things happen, and yet nobody seems to be there to hold anyone accountable. Well, that's changing now. Let's take a look at the first one here. U.S. Department of Justice posted this. Under the fearless leadership of POTUS, we are crushing the drug trade and saving countless American lives. 25 alleged drug dealers and traffickers have been arrested and federally charged in the last 24 hours. These defendants and anyone who helps spread the scourge of drugs in America will face the full force of federal law. So we've got justice coming for drug dealers. There's a little bit more to say on this. Eric Daugherty posted this. Just now, hundreds of federal and local agents carried out a huge raid in Los Angeles at the Sinaloa cartel fentanyl and meth hotbed. This was a multi-month undercover operation. And as you can see, there was a lot going on here.
Atención, somos la DEA, Administración para el Control de Drogas.
They seized a lot of fentanyl, a lot of other products. One of the main leaders of the Sinaloa cartel in that area was trying to flush a lot of this down the toilet when they caught this person. And very fascinating to see what they're. In other news in Virginia, the FBI raided the office of a Democratic leader, Senator Louise Lucas. And this was a very interesting development. She is the Senate pro tem in the state legislature of Virginia. And apparently this raid was due to fraud allegations. Take a look.
The FBI here telling us today that these are court-authorized criminal search warrants that they are issuing, and they're going into the building behind me. This is the office here in Portsmouth of State Senator Louise Lucas. You can likely see some of the FBI agents behind me. All of the staffers inside this building were told to come outside. I could hear them saying that they were not allowed back in the building. Throughout the last hour, we've been seeing the FBI come and go carrying boxes out of the building. Now, just across the parking lot next to where I am, there is a cannabis dispensary. We know that the state senator is associated with several cannabis locations and dispensaries. And what we're seeing there, a completely different scene carrying out. SWAT teams arrived with their weapons drawn, telling anyone in the building to come out of the building with their hands up. We also saw at least 3 people being taken away, taken into custody. First, they were put in handcuffs, put on the ground, and then they were taken away. So it's a slightly less large presence than we did see earlier, but there still is a good amount of FBI agents still here on the ground. Also, what happened within the last hour, the Senator Louise Lucas arrived here herself. I was able to speak with her. I asked her what her reaction was to all of this. She told me she had no idea what they were doing here. I asked her about the different locations that they might be. She, in response, asked me what locations the FBI were at today. We know, according to officials, at least 10 locations are being looked at today.
So things are being tracked down everywhere. The fraud's being exposed everywhere. What's interesting is Virginia recently had a redistricting effort and that went on, which was very fascinating. And it looks like some of that is being shot down by the Supreme Court as unconstitutional. They were trying to gain more Democratic seats. A lot of interesting things going on with this. But the fact that we're seeing actual action in terms of against fraud and corruption is certainly fascinating to watch when for so long it felt like justice was not coming. Just the News posted this. The FBI this morning raided the office of Virginia Senate President Pro Tem Louise Lucas. I want you to listen to what John had to say about this.
How about more news on potential political corruption? Get a load of this. The FBI this morning raided the office of Virginia Senate President Pro Tem Louise Lucas in connection with a corruption probe that has ensnared one of the big Democratic power brokers in Virginia. She's a powerful person and a close ally of Governor Abigail Spanberger. She actually campaigned for Spanberger, even sponsored Spanberger's redistricting. Officials said FBI agents executed search warrants at multiple locations, including a state Senate office in Portsmouth, Virginia, and a cannabis business with ties to the state senator. Lucas, as I said, been a very powerful figure in Virginia Democratic politics for many years and did a lot of stumping for Spanberger during last year's 2025 election race that put Spanberger in office. By the way, this is another headache for Spanberger, whose popularity is falling in Virginia very quickly. Now,
so this is very fascinating turn of events, and if you look at many of the questioning with the DOJ on the recent press conferences that they've held, there's been numerous reporters saying the President Trump is, shall we say, leveraging the DOJ for political reasons against the Democrats. It's actually not true, as the DOJ has pushed back against this, claiming that they're simply following the law. If people have broken the law, whether Democrat or Republican, it doesn't matter. They're going to follow it through. So we'll see how this rolls out. The Jackals show themselves and push back against the Lion. And I want to show a couple of the Jackals here in Europe, because I think this is important. The first one here is Freddie Merz, Chancellor of Germany. We are witnessing a profound historic rupture. We are going through a period of the kind that happens only once in a lifetime for each generation. We who were born after the Second World War have been lucky until today. But 80 years after the end of the war, we are now face to face with the reality that every generation in the previous centuries experienced. It lasted 80 years, but this historical rupture has now arrived at our doorstep. What is he talking about? He's talking about the rupture of the deep state, the rupture of their system that they've had in place for decades is being eradicated by Donald Trump. He went on to say this: we are strengthening ourselves. We are rearming in the truest sense of the word. Europe is identifying the instruments of power it possesses. For those of you from Germany, you can hear it in his own words here.
Zu verändern. Wir stärken uns. Wir rüsten im wahrsten Sinne des Wortes auf. Wir sorgen dafür, dass dieses Europa wirtschaftlich und sicherheitspolitisch wieder stärker wird. Europa identifiziert die Machtmittel, die es hat, und wir halten sie auch für den Einsatz bereit. Wir knüpfen.
Now, what's interesting about this is, look at that last sentence there. Europe is identifying the instruments of power it possesses, and we are prepared to use them. This is getting very desperate now, okay? The desperation's in the air as Donald Trump is continuing to dismantle the corruption and this control grid around the entire world. And there seems to be a concentration of leaders within Europe that are still a part of the old system. And we've had numerous other leaders talk about this extensively. One is this one from Canada, Mark Carney. He landed in Armenia for the 8th European Political Community Summit. This is the first time a non-European nation has taken part. And let's listen to what Carney said here. I thought it was interesting.
Another question, follow-up for me, and then my colleagues have a question. It's just on you being here, Canada being here, that family photo. We've heard a lot about this. Why so significant for Canada for you to be here and, as you say, deepen these relationships? Because it does, if you turn back time maybe 12 months, it might look a little unusual. It's getting more normal. But why in your mind, in 2026, is this so important?
Well, a couple of things, Graham. A lot's happened in the last 12 months, and some of it we saw coming, but more of it has occurred. And the importance of alliances with reliable partners, deepening those alliances has become ever more so. I list very quickly all the ways we're working with the European Union already. Right here in Armenia, as monitors, only non-European country doing that. We're the only non-European member of SAFE, which is a defense arrangement very good for Canadians, Canadian business, because it makes us stronger. We have these partners we can work directly, good for our businesses, defense businesses there. You asked about Ukraine. We're a coalition of the willing. It's not exclusively European. Australia and New Zealand in that as well, but it's effectively a European plus Canada, those other two countries coalition. So close work there. Straits of Hormuz, working very closely there. G7 French presidency. I mean, there is a series of linkages here from security through to economics that are being reinforced. We're working in real time. Look, I'm out of Canada for, I don't know, 36 hours, including a chunk of the weekend. By the way, thank you for coming along and blowing your weekend as well. It's an incredibly, I mean, this is important, but it's also an incredibly efficient way to spend the time. Thank you.
So what's interesting about this is that Carney is choosing to side with these European leaders fighting to maintain the current system, the control system that's been in place for decades and decades, instead of siding with Donald Trump, who's trying to break this apart and change the dynamics. And the dynamics is very interesting. If you look at, and I was a guest on a couple other shows this week, which some of you may have seen, where we talked about the dynamics. And some of those dynamics have to do with OPEC. You see, the Cabal has had control for a number of time of the oil system. So control the energy, organizations such as OPEC, for instance. And what's interesting about OPEC is one of the largest companies at OPEC is Aramco, okay, out of Saudi Arabia. And this was a coalition between the Saudis and with Standard Oil. And what is Standard Oil? Well, that's the Rockefellers, okay? So they created this system, and they wanted everybody on board where they could control, OPEC could control how much you could pump oil, how much energy you could put out there. And by having control of the energy, that was one thing. Then on the other side, they had control of the food system. And a good example of that is here in the United States. If you look at the beef industry, and this also applies to chicken, pork, and other proteins, turkey as well. But if you look at that, in the beef industry, there is only four main processors of meat products in America today. And guess what? Two of them are owned by foreign companies. One of them is strictly a Chinese company. And so they are controlling the market. We have the highest meat prices we've ever had in history currently right now. And so these four are control. So they're wielding powers of control. If we can control energy, if we can control meat, if we can control these things, we can somehow regain control of the people. But this isn't working. And even the Jackels are getting very loud. They're getting very obnoxious, if you will, right now, whether they be in Europe or in Canada or any of the other places. And they're showing themselves. They're showing the world who they are, what side they're on, right in the light of day, high noon on Sunday, if you will, where we can all see them clearly for who they are. And this is a unique trait about Donald Trump, is he has the ability of getting his enemies to come out and face him in the light of day in front of everybody to show who they really are. And this is, he's done it over and over and over again with many different people, even those that he's trying to highlight for you to get to know them, much like he did with Dr. Fauci during COVID. So this is fascinating as we watch these things unravel. Now, in terms of unraveling the energy dominance of OPEC, we just had the UAE leave OPEC. This is unleashing their power and energy. They wanted to move pumping output to 5 million barrels a day. They can do that now because they're no longer controlled by OPEC. They can pump as much as they want, and we can have energy going everywhere. What does this mean for the world, though? How is this important for all of us? It's important because as we break the grids of food, as we break the grips of energy, we attain freedom. And guess what happens to all those things? The price comes down. Right now, prices are at all-time high on energy, the oil and gas and all of this, right? So this, everybody's concerned. They're deeply concerned about these things taking place. Well, what you have to realize is that it may be painful for just a short time, but we're breaking this grid. When you get on the other side, because what's happened during this time of the Iran conflict is you had the U.S. release 400 million barrels of oil reserves. You had Venezuela wrap up their oil output higher than it's been in many, many years. You had Donald Trump remove the sanctions on Russian oil, unleashing more Russian oil for the whole world. And you had Donald Trump exercising the Defense Production Act to launch new oil exploration and drilling. And just this last week, he also reignited the Keystone XL pipeline, which is going to connect all the way into Alberta, Canada, bringing energy from Alberta all the way to the refineries on the Gulf of America. This is fascinating because what this is doing, this is unleashing energy unlike any time we've seen. I don't think any time in my lifetime have I seen such a move to unleash energy across the planet. And this is why I believe the price of energy will come down. It'll actually settle lower than where it was before we went into Iran, is my prediction, as all of these new sources of oil become available, and there's going to be boats everywhere filled with it, and we're going to see more temperate energy pricing in the future. Now, that doesn't change the situation for you in Europe, and I've got friends there, and I know we talk. And I understand your prices are at all-time highs for energy, whether it be gas and petrol and everything else that's going on. Even for your electricity bills are at all-time highs. So this is a problem that has to be addressed. But look at the difference between what the European Union leaders are doing, like the Chancellor of Germany or Macron of France or whatever. What has been their method of handling energy versus Donald Trump unleashing it? The countries with the energy will be the countries that dominate the next manufacturing phase and will be able to light the world. And so this is fascinating. Everything's being reordered. And what you have is you have Europe and you have Asia now coming to the shores of America to fill their boats with oil, to bring the energy from here. And Donald Trump is not done. He's going to continue doing this until energy is abundant everywhere. And I think that's a key component to the freedom and liberty that we're all looking for. So hope that's helpful. So let's move on. JGN reported this. So Mark Carney just stood at Armenia and proudly declared Canada is the most European of non-European countries. And he did say that. Take a listen.
On peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan. And I welcome the presence of President Aliyev. I'd like to say thank you again for the invitation. I do think that it is fitting that Canada is the first non-European country to join this forum, as we are the most European of non-European countries. We share a triple alignment of history, of values, and trust. Our histories are deeply intertwined. I'll refer back to the water analogy that we just witnessed with the opening ceremony, but it's personified by tens of millions of Canadians of European descent, including more than 60,000 Armenians. Our shared values are born of that common history: freedom, rule of law, democracy, pluralism. And these values shape our relationships, determine our priorities, and point to our common future. Canada has consistently stood up for these values, including in recent years. From our membership of the Coalition of the Willing as one of the largest per capita contributors to Ukraine, to our leadership of the NATO Brigade in Latvia, our intensifying cooperation with the Nordic countries, UK and Germany, on Arctic security, and our role as the only non-European participant in the European mission in Armenia. We're demonstrating not just the strength of our values in defending the rules-based international order, as you rightly mentioned, Antonio, but also the value of our strength. And that's necessary because the world is undergoing a rupture across several dimensions: in technology, in energy, in commerce, and geopolitics. Integration is being used as a weapon by some, and the rules are not constraining the hegemons. Now, we have to actively take on the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. We know nostalgia is not a strategy, but we don't think that we're destined to submit to a more transactional, insular, and brutal world. And gatherings such as these point to a better way forward. I think I'll close my remarks with a few observations on strategic autonomy, recognizing that security and prosperity today extend well beyond the traditional areas of food, energy, and defense, important as they are, to include space-based communications, semiconductors, digital sovereignty, critical minerals, independent payment systems, clean energy, and vaccines. And our strategic imperative is to build these sovereign capabilities with the most trusted partners, and that creates enormous opportunities for partnership between Canada and Europe. We view ourselves as highly complementary to your economic and security goals. That's demonstrated through the work we're doing with the presidencies on the new EU-Canada Strategic Partnership of the Future, building deeper relationships from digital to defense, supply chains to security. We're honored to be the first non-European country as part of the EU SAFE initiative. We would observe that in the last year, we have struck $18 billion worth of critical minerals deals across 20 of the world's leading critical minerals. The way to look at this is we are warehousing these to look for government-to-government deals with our close partners and under the rubric of the G7 first and foremost, but then more broadly. We're working with European partners across the technology stack, from hardware, cloud infrastructure, artificial intelligence, and space. And as we'll discuss later, we are an energy superpower, third largest oil producer, fourth largest natural gas, largest hydro renewable base. We're committed to addressing climate change while providing reliable, affordable energy to our citizens and partners. In closing, we're here because of your invitation. Again, thank you for that. But we're here because of the moral and security imperatives of our cooperation in the Caucasus, in the Baltics, in Ukraine, across Europe, and also because of the immense potential for our partnerships to build a better, more prosperous, sustainable, and just world for our citizens. And I'll close with this. It's my strong personal view that as the international order will be rebuilt, but it will be rebuilt out of Europe. And so I'm very appreciative of the symbolism of this invitation. Thank you.
So there you have it, Mark Carney talking about the importance of rebuilding their coalition, new alliance, as he calls it, beginning with Europe and the importance of Europe. So he's coalescing around the Jackels of Europe so they can fight against the lion. Okay, can we defeat the lion? And this is no more evident than right now, as you see all of this being exposed openly to the light of day. Now, Mark said something in this video, and he talked about how the European Union and Canada should be together, that Canada is the most European of all the nations. Well, this is crazy that he's having these discussions and talking about this, because it's only revealing his hand more openly. The other thing he mentioned here in this is he bragged about the energy, how much energy that they produce, the fourth largest natural gas producer, et cetera. But 80% of all that energy is coming out of the province of Alberta. And why is this significant? Because in Alberta, they are putting up a referendum vote on October 19th to leave Canada, that they're tired of being abused by the government there, and they want to get out of that. And he's trying to stop this referendum from happening any way possible. And as you'll see in this next little video, he talks about, maybe tools that he has at his disposal to stop this referendum vote. If Alberta leaves Canada, and Donald Trump has now approved the XL pipeline to connect into Alberta, what does this do for Canada? It means all that energy independence goes away. It means Canada's in a completely different economic circumstance if that were to occur. So very fascinating what we're watching here. Take a listen to what he says about this referendum vote in Alberta.
Separatists say they have more than 300,000 signatures to potentially trigger a referendum vote. What will you do to stop that referendum from winning?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is there's, again, keeping with the discussion today, there's the rule of law, there's the Clarity Act, which has been opined upon by the Supreme Court. Not at the same time when Madame Arbour was sitting on the Supreme Court, but has been the judgment passed there, and any referenda in any part of Canada need to be consistent with that. As you know as well, there's a judicial, you may know, there's a judicial challenge separately but relatedly by Indigenous nations in Alberta regarding the question. So those processes have to be followed through, but. If you bring it into, so I'm observing that because of the solemnity of the moment that we're observing today and celebrating today, but if you bring it into my day-to-day responsibilities and those of the government, it's to continue to act as we have from the start, which is in the spirit of cooperative federalism, making the country work, making it work for Albertans, making it work for Indigenous peoples, making it work for all Canadians. Thank you.
So there he is trying to talk about unity and everything, but he's ignoring the fact that Alberta is the largest producer of income for Canada in terms of provinces, and they send that money to Ottawa, and very little of it comes back to Alberta. And Alberta's just kind of tired of it. They feel like they're being abused and taken advantage of. I don't blame them. And so we're going to have to see what future Mark Carney has here for Canada, as well as many of these other leaders throughout Europe. Even the Chancellor of Germany is struggling to maintain control there as the people are beginning to see what's happening here. They're beginning to see this breakdown of the control grid. And what are the opportunities as this evaporates is that there's endless opportunity. There's lower energy costs. There's going to be lower acquisition costs for products and services. And you'll see that going forward. Now, one of the things that's interesting is Donald Trump made a comment about Europe today where he said that they're not upholding their agreement as it relates to tariffs. And he's giving them until the 4th of July to meet that agreement, or he's going to levy additional tariffs against the European Union. There's to put economic pressure there additionally. And what does this do? It puts pressure on the leaders of Europe as the people will begin to see the fallacy of those that are leading them. So this is going to be very interesting as we go forward. Macron said this: "Our goal is not to serve the agenda of any big powers. Europe decided to wake up and not depend on any big power like the U.S." Take a listen to what Macron has to say. Talk about Jackels.
Peace in Europe is a very strong signal, and the resistance war in Ukraine, the Armenian strategy, what is done in Moldova, plus what is done by a lot of countries around the table, is as well the fact that as Europeans, we decided during the past few years to have a collective wake-up call and not to be dependent on any big power. And this is as well one of the preconditions of this strategic autonomy.
Now, the interesting thing I find with this is they don't want to be dependent on any big power. Now, let's say that the United States leaves NATO, which I think is on the agenda. Okay, I think eventually that's where we're headed. So if the U.S. is going to leave NATO, we're 70% of the income of NATO and the spending of NATO is from the United States. So if we leave, that leaves the rest of Europe to stand alone. Can they defend themselves? Or is there any one country that could defend themselves? No. Collectively, possibly. Okay, but it's pretty minimal. And so this is interesting that these leaders they're trying to talk tough, trying to talk big, yet their policies haven't prepared them to be tough, to be big, to be able to withstand an outside enemy, always thinking they had the U.S. on their side, and now they're turning against the United States, not being there in Iran the way they should have been. Why? Because the people that control Europe are the people that were controlling Iran, people that controlled the intelligence agencies and have for many years. But you've seen a major shift in that recently with the Donald Trump's administration over the last 15 months. What does that mean? It means Donald Trump put the guy in as head of the CIA that was the biggest complainer about the CIA being a violation of rules and regulations everywhere. Okay? John Ratcliffe, who runs the CIA today, he was the biggest voice against the misuse of intelligence power that have been going on by these agencies, and now he runs it. And now what's happening is you see the intelligence agency being used for the benefit of removing the cabal, not to enforce it. Isn't that fascinating? How did the U.S. know which targets to hit in Iran to decapitate the military capability? This was months of reconnaissance. The CIA's been deep in the Iran for many years. Not only the CIA, but MI6 and Mossad are there as well. This is how the targets were located. So now the intelligence is being used for the benefit of the patriots who want their freedom instead of being used against the people. It was the intelligence agency that installed the current regime, the supreme leader. And when they got rid of the Shah in the 70s and installed what we have there now. Okay? So now isn't it interesting that we're now headed for another regime change, but this time the agency is not running the show. It's being run by the patriots for the benefit of people. The dynamics here are very fascinating. So as loud and obnoxious as the Jackels want to be, the lion continues to gain ground. Let's look at some other news here as we go forward. Excuse me. I had a great call with the President of the European Union, Ursula von der Leyen. We discussed many topics, including that we are completely united that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. We agreed that a regime that kills its own people cannot control a bomb that can kill millions. I've been waiting patiently for the EU to fulfill their side of the historic trade deal we agreed in Turnberry, Scotland, the largest trade deal ever. Excuse me. Promise was made that the EU would deliver their side of the deal and, as per agreement, cut their tariffs to zero. I agreed to give her until the country's 250th birthday, or unfortunately, their tariffs would immediately jump to a much higher levels. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So there you have it. European nations need to honor their agreements, or tariffs are going up. This is going to change. This is going to put the economic screws. You see how the economic screws are being put to Iran. What do you think this tariff would do to Europe? Donald Trump is going after the cabal and their regimes of power in every country across the world. Freedom is coming, everyone. U.S. Department of Energy shared this. Secretary Wright, California's simply done everything wrong in energy policy. They used to produce 40% of U.S. oil, and now they produce only 2%. Take a listen to what he had to say. California keeps getting it wrong, but take a look.
You've heavily criticized California of what you've called untenable threat after the state saw an oil tanker from the Middle East dock on its shores. Gas prices there surging to $6 a barrel, $6.16 this morning. And Secretary, I know Dan Yergin has been on the show telling us that of all the states in America, California is impacted the most because of the way that they have dealt with policy, ensuring that, you have no oil drilling anywhere near California, and they've relied on the Middle East for oil and gas.
Yeah, California's simply done everything wrong in energy policy. They've destroyed their electricity grid. 3 other states produce more electricity than California, but California wins in the most expensive of all. They used to produce 40% of U.S. oil. Now they produce 2%. Yes, the majority of their oil is imported from overseas on oil tankers to come into refineries in California that are struggling to remain open as 2 major ones close this year. They've done everything possible to make themselves more fragile to external shocks, to make energy more expensive, to drive the highest adjusted poverty rate of any nation in the state, net out migration of the population, of businesses. And then I see Gavin Newsom around bragging about his policies. Like, where are those Americans that want expensive energy, that want dependence on foreign nations instead of their own state, or at least neighboring states in our own nation? All of those are within reach of Californians, and if some common sense eventually gets into political leadership out there, California could have a golden age again, too.
So big stuff there with California. And this is, Q said many years ago now, watch California. This is all about revealing, again, the deep state fallacy and idiocy that's going on. This is happening in many countries, as I'm pointing out here today, okay? This isn't just in America, but this is a good example in the state of California. Now, the state of California has a larger economy than many of the nations of Europe, okay? So it's not insignificant. It's actually very big, and the fact that they had many of their oil wells offshore shut down is very fascinating. Donald Trump has reopened several of those oil wells using the Defense Production Act. And so some of those are coming back online now, which is going to help with the energy crisis going on there in California. But this is, again, just more evidence, if you will, about how loony these policies have been over time. The U.S. Trade Representative, Jamieson Greer, talked about the importance it is for the United States to re-industrialize. In other words, we got to bring industry back and rebalance our trade initiatives using this. Let's take a look.
The United States, we have to reindustrialize. We have to reduce our trade deficit. We have to get real wages up. We have to have manufacturing as a bigger portion of our economy. That necessarily means that we need to fix the terms of trade with other trading partners, friend or foe. And that means we have to have hard conversations with the Europeans, who, by the way, have the largest trade surplus in the world with the U.S. right now.
So what's interesting is, as this goes on, over the last 35, 40 years, the United States has lost nearly 100,000 factories, if you can imagine it. And where did a lot of that go? It went to China, went to other nations. So now we're having to rebuild. And even as we started the program with Kevin Hassett talking about all these new construction jobs, rebuilding factories, it's going to take some time to get that rebuilt and to bring it online. But the fact that this administration is pushing so hard to get this done quickly is a testament that they're trying to get us through the coming reset. Resets are difficult. When you change currencies, it is bumpy, it is turbulent, stuff happens, and it is great to see the administration is full steam ahead to try to keep that economy running hot so that any disruption can be as minimal as possible as we go through the reset. Jenny Pirro, who is the basically the attorney for Washington, D.C., had this message to say about rescuing some of the beagles that have been used in these pharmaceutical labs. And take a listen to what she had to say. I thought it was very good.
Hi, everyone. You may know that I love animals. And from the time I was a young prosecutor, I started prosecuting animal cruelty cases. Well, of late, you may have heard of Ridgelands Farms. It is a facility, a research facility in Wisconsin that was using beagles for research. They use beagles, apparently, because they're small in size and they have a very docile temperament. Well, it appears that a special prosecutor identified them as having violated standards in some of the eye procedures that I will not get into because it will make you sick, that it was conducting on beagles. As a result of that, Lori Simmons, Big Dog Ranch, and a lot of significant people got involved to rescue these beagles. So far, there are 1,500 beagles that are being rescued as a result of a deal where literally the dog rescuers have to pay for the beagles in order to get this research facility to give those dogs up. Now, the Ridgeland farm will lose its license because they were selling the beagles to other facilities so they could do research on them. We really have to stay on top of these facilities that are really abusing animals under the title of doing research. These animals have no options. I mean, they're victims, complete victims. And what's happening to them is outrageous. And a special shout out to Lori Simmons and the Big Dog Ranch, which has done incredible work on behalf of abused animals. If it were not for Lori and people like her, this deal would never have been accomplished. God bless you, Lori, for everything that you do.
You know, I've had many of you reach out to me and say something's got to be done about the dogs and about the research and stuff. Isn't it good to see that we're beginning to see some justice carried out? We're beginning to see some things being corrected that have been wrong for so long. I wanted to highlight this because I wanted you to know that good things are happening. It isn't all dire out there, okay? And as we make progress with this, we should cheer and celebrate each step that we make. Got some comments here from Donald Trump that I'll let you take a listen to. And we're about to wrap up here, but let's take a listen to this first.
Drugs coming in by sea are down 97%, and now we've started the land force, which is much easier. And you'll hear some complaints from some people in, like representatives from Mexico and other places. But if they're not going to do the job, we're going to do the job, and they understand that. So that's sort of the easy one by comparison to the sea. We had to do the sea first. You had no idea how much came in by water.
So what does this mean? It means that there could be operations to take perhaps military personnel into Mexico to deal with the cartels there and clean it up. Donald Trump seems to be very intent on cleaning up the cartels throughout all of the Americas, as the launch of Shield of Americas was chartered, and that is now moving forward very rapidly. War correspondent shared this. Holy crap, FDA Commissioner Marty McCreary confirmed the FDA purposely lied to the people for nearly 2 decades against the dietary fats to help Big Pharma. Take a listen to what he said here.
They suppressed the data for 16 years. 2 other large studies failed to show an association. Finally, the study trickled out in the medical literature. Nobody noticed it. Those on the low-fat group had higher rates of heart attacks. Why? Maybe because when you avoid fat, you have to pound food with carbohydrates, and often ultra-processed carbohydrates stripped of fiber and chopped up. It functions like sugar. We created a generation of children with low protein, high carbohydrates, sugar addiction, and burdened with ultra-processed foods. And what did we do as a medical field? Drugged them at scale. Those days are over. We are telling people the truth about food.
Isn't that awesome? Isn't that good to hear that an FDA commissioner, Food and Drug Administration, is actually speaking the truth? Incredible what's happening here. This is going to make a massive difference as we go forward. And in closing, we always try to provide a little bit of comic relief here. Donald Trump shared this video. Of course, it's made by AI. Let's be honest, but just a little bit of fun that we can have as we close out our show today.
Attention, please. May I have your attention? This is your new I told you speaking. I thought I had told you not to try to cross my friggin' blockade, but you did. So now you get the discombobulator. The discombobulator is a big, beautiful weapon that basically makes your head explode and your testicles shrink to the size of little peanuts. Other than that, everything's going to be wonderful. Believe me. Anyway, get ready, bitches. Activating the discombobulator in 3, 2, 1.
So there we go. A little bit of fun to end the show today. The Jackels are challenging the Lion, and the Lion is holding firm. I do expect you're gonna hear a lot. I think we're gonna hear a lot in the next several days, probably before our next podcast, about progress with Iran. Even though there was this tit for tat that went on today, and we had to take a little military action to respond to Iran's push. They're pricking the lion here. So that occurred today, but I think you're going to see a lot take place with Iran over the next several days. I think you're going to hear a lot take place with Ukraine over the next several days. As we get into the coming few weeks, you expect to have Cuba come into the news and become an issue, and I do expect a resolution there as well. The Senate is working on the markup of the Digital Asset Clarification Bill, otherwise known as the Clarity Act, and that is being worked on as well so that can be passed. I do expect that to be passed and finished before we get to the 4th of July. If the Senate can finish their work here in May, perhaps we get a signature of the president in June, and it's ready to go perhaps for new currency. So a lot of things taking place, a lot of things happening. I hope this was helpful for all of you, that you could kind of understand some of the current dynamics of what's going on in our world. We're trying to put the truth forward as best we can. So for all of us here at Enoch Global Service, we wish you well. We hope that many of you have a most wonderful weekend. For those that are still hoping to seek an appointment with me, I don't know what the availability of my time is going to be when we get past the funding resolution with projects, because it's going to be I'm going to be very tied up at that point. For now, there is still a little bit of time on the calendar. If you're needing to speak with me and you want to get some things sorted for your projects going forward, you can just go to enochgs.com. Scroll towards the bottom. There's actually a place there where you can click to find the calendar to see if there's any available times that'll work for you. Also, there is a sign up there right near in that same section on the website where you can subscribe to be on our notification list and email list for newsletters, etc. So hopefully that is helpful for all of you. We love you. Have a wonderful weekend. It's Mother's Day this weekend. I hope you're doing things to celebrate your mother. If you're in the United States, it's Mother's Day is always a wonderful time. Please do something special for her and bring her some flowers. Do something that you think would be nice for her, for all that she has done. Mothers are the unsung heroes of the world. And we wish that they were even more recognized than one day a year. I think they should get much more recognition than that, because it is the mothers that shape the people of our world, that shape the children, that help them develop their attitudes and their kindness, their respect for others. It comes from our mother. And we're so grateful for all that they do. They not only bear us for 9 months before we're born, but they continue to care for us our entire lives. And the love of a mother is beyond anything I think that we ever experience in life. So please thank your mother this Mother's Day for all she has done for you, and let her know that she is an angel in your life. From all of us here, we wish you luck. We wish you happiness and joy. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. We'll see you next week. Thanks. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.